Follow to Lead is brought to you by the Classic Learning Test, the preferred assessment partner of the Duke and Altum Schools Collaborative. Here at DIA, we believe tests do more than measure learning. They're pedagogical. Tests teach. That's why it's so important to choose assessments aligned with our Catholic mission, forming students in truth, goodness, and beauty. To learn more about CLT's work with Catholic schools, visit cltexam.com. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Christ the teacher, teach us to listen. Teach us to do the deep listening to the sounds of our soul, waiting to hear your voice, calling us to cast out deeper, to become fishers of men and women, shepherds of souls, to follow your will in order to lead others to the truth, beauty, and goodness only you can offer. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Welcome to Follow to Lead, a journey twice a month into the world of Catholic education and our faith, sponsored by the Duke and Altum Schools Collaborative. Together, we're exploring what it means to follow God in order to lead others to Him. I'm Father Randy Sly, your host. Today, we will be talking with Cristy McNay, who is with Partners in Mission. She's a partner there, specializing in Catholic school enrollment management, recruitment, and retention. And with 17 years of leadership experience working in and with Catholic schools, she served as a Dean of Enrollment Management, Director of Admissions, Director of Advancement, and an enrollment consultant. She specializes in mission-driven enrollment strategies, retention planning, advancement, growth, leadership development, and just translating data into clear, confident action. Her approach is rooted in customer-centered service and the conviction that authentic relationships drive sustainable growth. She's a graduate of an all-girls Catholic school and parent of Catholic school and university students. She holds a BA in social science, a master's degree in educational leadership, where she focused on listening-centered leadership, and then received a doctorate in educational leadership with a focus on enrollment management in Catholic schools. Cristy, welcome to the program.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
And it sounds like you're kind of interested in Catholic education.
I'm a little bit of a nerd.
Well, that's great. Well, we've been excited to have you on the program. And we like to begin with giving each of our guests an opportunity to just kind of tell us a little bit about themselves, how they grew up, and other little maybe nuggets that would help us to get to know you better. So could you just do a little sharing with us?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, you covered a lot of it. I am absolutely passionate about Catholic education, and that stems from my experience going through life. Lifelong Catholic. I feel like Catholic education changed my life, and it's the greatest gift my parents ever gave me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it was a sacrifice for them. It was a sacrifice for my husband and myself as well, but the Lord leads you in the ways that He wants you to be impactful. And without Catholic schools, I'm not sure where I would be or where my kids would be. So that for me is my essence. I could tell you about living in Southern California, and I now live in Las Vegas, Nevada. But at the end of the day, no matter where I am, Catholic schools are on my mind.
And what was it, do you think, that kind of led you into making Catholic education kind of your lifelong pursuit? Was there a person that was a major influence in that?
Interestingly enough, it was serendipitous, as most enrollment managers will tell you. You land in this job not really knowing what it is, but somebody said, you'd be good at this. And I was approached by my she was my algebra teacher in ninth grade at my all-girls Catholic high school, and I was not a great student. In fact, I remember sitting next to her because I was not. So I liked to talk in class. But she said, I think you'd be really good at this. And we've never had a full-time enrollment manager or director of admissions. Would you like to do it? And I said, "Are you sure you remember me? Because I don't think." So I ended up going back to my alma mater in this role and absolutely fell in love with every aspect of the job.
That's interesting that you share that kind of a background. When I was at St. Michael High School as the president, I approached this one gal who was very active in the school.
Mhm.
She worked in an administrative role in an insurance company and had kids in our school. And I said, "What would you think of being our admissions director?" And she looked at me, tilted her head like, "Are you kidding?"
Right?
And but she moved into the role and it just exploded. She just had found her niche. And it's
Yeah,
really neat how that happens.
we have to listen. And I think that, at the age I was prepared to listen. Of course, nobody wants to be in school. Well, most of us don't. So I didn't really appreciate my Catholic education growing up. After I left and I saw what others behaved like, what their actions reflected, their mindset towards servant leadership, all of that, I realized what a gift Catholic schools were. So I always stayed tied to my alma mater. Um, and I think at the end of the day, we just want to give back to what
Right.
formed us and shaped us. So when the Holy Spirit moves you and when an opportunity presents itself, I encourage everybody to definitely pay attention and listen to what God is asking of you.
The area of enrollment, that of admissions, is mission critical.
Hmm.
Uh, if we don't enroll students, there's no reason to be there.
Correct.
And it is probably, as I look back, the most challenging and daunting area, that we have because you're competing against other schools, other private schools. You're competing against perhaps other Catholic schools in
Hmm.
the area. And so you've got to really be able to work intentionally. And so that's why I've really been eager to have you on the program because this I know is your key area that you like to work in. And so I've been eager to get you onto the program to talk about enrollment and even to the point of thinking now what would we talk about? And we in our email exchange you say, well, what questions are you going to ask? But the more I thought about it, and again, I came up with this proposal where I sent you in an email saying, what I'd really like to do is use the time for you to share the following, and that is the 5 most important lessons I've learned about admissions. And thank you for saying yes, because I think this is really going to drive us towards some really key best practices,
Hmm.
but also life lessons, I think, are the best way for us to really embrace and kind of move those things forward. So, what I'd like to do is just dive in, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, your first lesson, the one that you have at the top of your list, just says responsibility versus ownership. And what do you
Mhm.
mean by that?
Well, I think a lot of schools get a little confused. Not all, some have this down pat, but in most schools that I've worked with, you see a divide. Faculty and staff we're all overburdened and taxed in our Catholic schools. We wear many hats. We do many roles that are not typical of a teacher or of an admissions director. And that's just the case across Catholic schools as a whole. So when it comes to enrollment management, admissions, recruitment, retention, oftentimes I would run into in my earlier years teachers who would just look at me funny when I would say, "Hey, could you help me with this?" So you got a lot of that's your job. I teach, you do enrollment. So I think it's important, and we all say we're all responsible for enrollment, and that's supposed to be true. But is it actually part of our culture? Is it in our job descriptions? Meaning every teacher, every staff member from the plant administrator to the front office person, do they understand their role in the enrollment journey? Are we acknowledging them for the work they
Uh-huh.
do? Are we giving them the tools to be a part? How do you answer the phone? How do you greet a guest? How do you respond to a parent who's really upset? And that's not just the role of the enrollment manager. However, so beyond faculty, staff, students, parents, alumni, board members, etc., and even your vendors, they can help you. Kind of like if you own a home, Father, I own my home. but I need people to help me maintain it.
Sure. Yeah.
So at the end, I'm responsible for the mortgage, I'm responsible for keeping it up, but I need help to do that. So I want to make sure that even though I'm a leader, my head of school, my board, we own enrollment, that the people that are responsible to help me get it there, they understand what they need to do and how they can help. So for me,
Yeah.
that's important. For instance, I'll give you an example. I encourage all schools to take time to help every stakeholder perfect their top three reasons they love the school. And it can be different for everybody, right? But it
Hmm.
all needs to lead back to our mission, our purpose, our living narrative. Um, and I think we can help them with that, but that makes them feel better about supporting us.
One of the areas where I really see this responsibility being shared is when you have shadow days.
Oh, yes.
On a shadow day, one of the things that uh, is always fun to watch is to see the way certain teachers kind of connect uniquely with the kids that
Yes.
are visiting their classroom.
1,000%. And that anecdote, that story can be shared with the parent. That teacher can help with a follow-up. They can, leave a note for me to let me know, hey, this child asked meaningful questions and is really interested. Now I know how to follow up to ensure that family and that child feel known. We know you, we know what you're looking for, we have it. And that teacher now becomes an integral part of that family's journey all the way through till graduation and when they're coming back to visit. So,
Yeah, and it also involves the students, doesn't it? With them as
mhm.
they're escorting a shadow, that they become an ambassador. You know, we used to do a lot of training on that, really encouraging the students. These are your future friends. They could be in your
Yes.
community.
They
They
could be
could
in your
be in your
bridal
house.
party.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, the students are pivotal. They will make or break the experience. And I've had those situations where, kids that aren't ambassadors might say something they shouldn't. And, I love to let families and students know we are a microcosm of society. We have the same issues, the same concerns as any other school, secular, Christian, etc. However, we approach it differently, and here's what we do. And I think those kids that are ambassadors and hosts can be extremely powerful in the follow-up as well. Hey, I hope to see you here next year. A quick email, a quick handwritten note, even a phone video that goes out with that offer of admission that says, we had such a great day. Can't wait to see you on campus next year at lunch, etc. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that follow up, that communication, again, it's a part of that ownership, isn't it? And I think for me, one of the key characteristics of somebody that takes on the role of enrollment manager, admissions director, what do you want to call it,
Mhm.
is a sense of owning this wonderful gateway and really trying to empower others to help them, as you were saying earlier. But
Right.
they really do have this sense that it's not just a job, you know,
Oh.
it's my mission in life to really populate the school.
You captured the essence. I remember saying the first couple of months that I was doing this job, I would do this job for free. I loved it. You're connecting.
You didn't say that out loud though, I
I
hope.
did. I did. And then I backed it up, and my principal said, she's like, you be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And so it is a job. It is the
Yeah.
hardest job I've ever loved. And I
Hmm.
did love doing it. It's very difficult to stay motivated, innovative. Um, However, at the end of the day, you know that you're making an impact. You
Hmm.
are helping. Maybe you have a sponsoring order. You're helping them to live out their mission. Their charisms are
Hmm.
alive. All of those pieces are really important for sure. It's a very important job, very tough job.
Boy, I couldn't agree with you more. Just watching and being a part of that process, and it's a process. There are so many different
Oh my
steps that you have to
gosh.
take a
Yes.
student through to do that.
Yeah.
One of the other things I was thinking about when you talked about this shared ownership
Hmm.
and responsibility is when we had open houses,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it was really neat to see how the teachers, I think, got a bigger picture of enrollment development because they saw all of these moving parts to bring new students into school. and to be a
Right.
part of that, it was I think it really gave them some enjoyment and
Mhm.
a different way of being involved in the school where they teach.
Well, and goes beyond teaching too, which is a
Yeah.
reminder for them that every essence, and you had mentioned it as a process. I look at it as a full journey.
Hmm.
So we're moving from a transactional, I teach, you absorb, regurgitate it back, whatever that might be. It's also the business office and how that affects the family. It's also the carpools. Can we get to school on time? It's also the campus minister
Yep.
who, has retreats that need to be touted, planned for, and how do all of us play a role? It's cross-functional, right? And we're all supporting one another when we're operating on all cylinders.
Boy, that is the truth. And I think that the more that you have that shared ownership of mission, and in a sense, and this kind of goes way back previous to our the subject that we have, but hiring for mission,
Oh, golly.
so
So
that
hard.
the people that you have working with you as teachers and staff all really own the mission.
That is probably, Father, one of the most heartbreaking parts of watching schools kind of go down a path that can lead to their demise.
Hmm.
I say that because we have often been in positions where people will let us know in July they're not coming back, maybe even August. And we're in this odd space of having to hire just to get somebody in the classroom. And
Yeah.
we're willing in some cases to compromise the faith in that. And I've worked in a few Catholic schools where we have teachers that are not Catholic, which is fine. But do they buy into our mission? Do they
Hmm.
understand what our getting souls to heaven goals are? Do are they actively reminding their students every day all intellect comes from God, and here's how that lives out in math, science, history. So it's important to hire well, and that's why I go back to responsibility includes what's in the job description. And yes, enrollment management should be, but standing up for our faith, standing up for our mission, and ensuring that kids understand that is probably the most important piece aside from do you know how to teach math?
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And there's nothing scarier in the summer than going, well, we just found out we have another position to fill.
yes.
And yeah,
Yeah, we just heard from a diocese just this last week at NCEA let us know we are looking for 9 principals. Can you
oh
imagine?
my, at this
Yeah.
time of year.
At this time of year. And God
Yeah.
provides, we know that. But we
Yeah.
also have to be discerning and be okay with taking a leap of faith to say no to someone who may not fit, who may
Exactly.
not forward our mission. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And just be willing to fill in the gaps until we find the person that really does fit.
1000%.
Yeah. Well, number two of your life lessons
Mhm.
is you say that there's in the importance of enrollment manager empowerment.
Yes.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
sounds intriguing.
Well, I think it's more geared towards the schools that actually have an enrollment manager functionality. And a lot of our K through eights, you're going to see the principal or the front office is doing
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that those folks shouldn't be empowered to do their job well. But let's take the case of a high school or a K through 12 where you do have an enrollment manager. Um, it's far too often that we see them treated as gatekeepers. We see them treated as you just process the applications, we'll take care of the rest. And really, this person has a pulse on what's happening both inside and outside. They are an extension of the president, head of school, principal, showing, here's the face of our
Hmm.
school, reflecting that. But what they really need, and this is came from my experience, a very negative experience in one of my schools, about not having the authority to affect positive change. And that can come by not having a seat at the leadership table, by not having a direct report to the president or head of school who's
Right.
reporting to the board or even the board. You're, looking at that, not signifying from the leadership level to the rest of the school, this role is important. Not the person, the person's always important. All of us are equally important in a school. But this role is so pivotal to our success that we must all get behind it. That has to come from the leader.
Hmm.
Um, when I did my dissertation, a lot of my study, I studied three Catholic schools. One that was knocking it out of the park, one that was doing okay, and one that was struggling. The differentiators there came to the leadership empowering their enrollment manager. The school that was doing really well, that enrollment manager, actually that president told me, she tells me what to do. Now,
Hmm.
of course, that's not the case, right? But what we saw there was a very collaborative approach wherein that president believed fully in that enrollment manager and allowed her to direct and dictate what would work. And it worked. That school was closing its enrollment down 2 weeks after sending offers of admission because they were full. And they were
Wow.
not in a great
Yeah.
neighborhood. And it was, a very interesting. Now, the school that wasn't doing well, first comment the principal made to me is, she's not that important. She shouldn't have a seat at the leadership table. We'll take care of that. So you can see that if you're hiring well, you've got to do that first. You have to give them the tools. You've got to support them. You've got to give them resources. You've got to give them professional development. Enrollment managers, such as the Partners in Mission Summer Institute or the Duke and Altum Conference, those are important pieces
Right.
to a Catholic school enrollment manager success is they've got to have the authority to be able to do their job well.
I think that differentiation is so important where the enrollment manager is not about sorting papers,
No.
but it's about taking a student and his or her parents on a journey, as you said.
1000%.
Yeah, I really like that differentiation because uh, we've got the thing is so automated now. Getting
Mhm.
the papers done is not a big
Right.
deal, but it's bringing the people and
Yeah.
integrating them in through that journey.
And how do you build trust with them?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
number one determining factor for a family that's going to spend their new car money, their vacation money, their savings, etc., on an education that in all theories, you could get for quote unquote free down the street at the public school, which we know is not true. We have to build a relationship with that family, a relationship of trust to say, your student will be safe, known, and loved here. And I'm going to prove that to you at every step of this journey. So, yes, we can automate some things, inquiries, applications, enrollment contracts, but we have to humanize. And so that's where I go
exactly.
from that part where we had talked earlier about we can be transactional, but what's going to be the game changer is transformational, relational. And that to me is
Hmm.
what an enrollment manager you hire well for. Now they have to be able to look at data. They've got to be able
Sure.
to discern stories. They've got to have great conversations internally, externally. There are a lot of moving parts there, but at the crux of what we're trying to do is build a lifelong relationship with a family, um, so that they love us and won't ever leave us.
One of the things that I observed uh, at the school was we had a family come in to do their initial interview for enrollment, and the father did not speak English.
Hmm.
And when they came to the meeting, our admissions director already had a translator in place so that the father could talk with us just as easily as the mother.
And that
And
was
it's
a
little things
small
like
thing.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a small thing. One of my favorite books, and I recommend it all the time. If you haven't read it, I'm sure most of your audience has. It's Unreasonable Hospitality. Now, it's about the restaurant industry. It really doesn't apply.
right.
But what it does is it gets your mindset into what are the little things that we can do to move the needle that we do well that mirror what our community's like every day.
Hmm.
And that's where I really feel an enrollment manager can continually refine, guide, and put some guardrails on here's what we need to be doing, here's why it's working, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the huddles that was most productive for our director of development was when she and I and our director of admissions would sit down together and brainstorm.
Those are the best meetings.
Yeah, because we knew that our director of admissions knew the families better
Mhm.
than the rest of us
Yes.
and could help us to usher in the things that we needed to do in the areas of development better.
And we rely on one another. I need that
Yeah,
advancement team to say, hey, I have a donor. that is specifically looking to support a specific type of student and or family, do you have anybody in the pipeline for that? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do, and they need 4 years of support. That advancement enrollment relationship can be so powerful on many, many levels. So,
Okay, I'm going to kind of go a little bit off script here, but I wanted to ask you
sure.
if you were to describe an enrollment manager and the qualities that one would need to look for in hiring one,
hmm
what qualities do you see as important?
Hmm. Well, obviously, they need to be personable. They need to be able to think on their feet, not be afraid to speak publicly. Public speaking is one of the things I did most often, which, by the way, my all-girls Catholic education helped me immensely with that. Nobody hides. Nobody hides in a Catholic school. Um, I think they have to be an innovator. You have to be willing to take risks, calculated, obviously, nothing dangerous, of course, but you have to be able to say, I'm looking at my data, I'm looking at the institutional history, I'm fully immersed in the mission and the charisms, etc. This, I think, is going to work. And you have to be okay with making change. Um, in most of our Catholic schools, you hear a lot of that won't work here. We don't do things like that. This is how we've always done it. That's probably one of the biggest challenges for an enrollment manager is to
Hmm.
come in and make change. So you have to get somebody who's strong but soft, if that makes any sense at all.
Uh-huh.
Building relationships is pivotal. Having the mindset to think forward, 5, 10 years, and really, this one's hard. Working with others, listening.
Yeah.
Um, Too many times you have an enrollment person who just wants to tell you about the school. Here's what we have. Here's what we have. The best enrollment managers are going to stop and listen and really get the family to tell them why we're here, why we're looking at you, what we're seeking. Then that's when you go in and you say, "Great, we're in value alignment," or you know what, this might not be the school for you. You have to be okay having those conversations.
Yeah, it's kind of like in marketing where you have the USP,
Yes,
unique selling position.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the this is how this is not how you're going to fit into us. This is how we are going to fit you.
Yeah. thousand
Yeah.
percent.
Okay. Number three, do more with your existing pipeline.
Yeah, this one's super simple. We know who's part of our target audience, and yes, we should be marketing and going out and finding people who don't know us, but we cannot change birth rates that are declining, tuition costs that are increasing, financially that isn't keeping up. So things that we should be doing better with our existing families that know about us or are in our pipeline, is we've got to go the extra mile. We mentioned unreasonable hospitality. So
Hmm.
customer service is going to be your differentiator. That means how quickly are you responding when somebody inquires or calls? Are you personalizing and calling them by name? Do you know what their child's interested in? Are you tailoring invitations? And then the pivotal piece to that is Catholic authenticity. That
Right.
is the game changer. I'm telling Catholic schools now, lean in hard. Do not be ashamed. Do not be all things to all people. What is our promise? That's our mission. What are our outcomes? How do we show our living narrative? How do we show
Hmm.
how our faith is lived every day? So I encourage an exercise of create an audit map of where faith is explicitly integrated across curriculum, student life, etc. My little light went out, so let me put that back on. So yeah, it's value alignment is the most pivotal part of this Catholic authenticity because we don't want one family that doesn't buy into who we are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think the whole idea of value education, where you're educated within like the Catholic value system, is important even to non-Catholic families.
hmm
And I think that has especially been more prominent in recent years during COVID, but
Yeah,
also in the secularization of the public school system. More and more families are looking for values.
they are. We're countercultural now,
Yeah.
and families want what we have. We need to just be better attuned to hearing what they're seeking and showing them how that's lived on our campuses. And it's different for every school, but our Catholicity is the game changer.
One of the things you're talking about doing more with your existing pipeline.
Mhm.
One of the things that we always struggled with is how much do you do with tchotchkes,
The
with
stuff they're
little
going to throw
gifts?
away.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it depends. It depends.
yeah, because there are some schools that we compete with that, boy, they just inundate their
Mhm.
potential students with T-shirts and little footballs and
But
all
if that's how
kinds
a
of goodies.
family's choosing you, is that really, are they really looking for the right things? And we
Yeah.
competed against another all-girls school who I love dearly and have a good friendship with, but you know, they gave out stuff that we didn't, and
Hmm.
that's not indicative of who you are. And so I say stand firm in who you are. Now, if those things represent like a little Jesus statue or a rosary or something that is important to your school, I understand that. But you're not going to win a family over solely based on a t-shirt. You,
Yeah.
you, if you are, those aren't the folks that you want.
Boy,
So,
that is true.
yeah.
The other thing is uh, a lot of times the kids are going where their friends are going.
Mhm.
Is there a way to address that particular narrative with families?
hmm First and foremost, get those kids to come to your school. How about they
Well,
follow
that's
your?
yeah, that's number one. Exactly.
But no, I think you have to really walk that conversation with a family to say you are dealing with an underdeveloped mind that is making decisions. I had parents say to me, "Well, you know how it is. She wants to make her own decisions." No, I don't. I parent first.
Yeah.
So just kind of reminding parents that you're partnering with them and that this is a pivotal time in that child's
Hmm.
life, and giving them the reasons why this is an important decision. Again, at the end of the day, if they're letting their child make that decision, not sure that they're buying into what we're selling.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, number four. Here
hmm
we go. Leaning into mission and our living narrative.
Yeah, and I think we kind of touched on this, so it'll
Yeah.
be a little brief, but our mission is our promise, our living narrative is our proof. It's the old adage, show me, don't tell me. So I tell schools and I caution them, stay away from buzzwords. We develop the whole child. We do, show me how your faith is lived out across every aspect of your journey during the day, outside of school, service trips, retreats, alumni who've gone on to become religious or are doing something great in the world that really echoes what we taught them. I always told families, why do we have service hours? It's not a mandate. You do have to do them, but what we're really doing is asking our kids to be open to their purpose. What is God stirring their soul for? So I might love horses. Does that mean I should be an equine vet? Probably not. But what I could do is begin a program for kids with special needs, and I get to do that and explore that and discover in high school or
Hmm.
grade school what it is God's calling me to do.
So by leaning into mission, we have to be careful, as you said, about not being cliche.
Correct.
How would a school approach looking at their mission and determine, okay, I think we've got the right words here?
hmm Well, I think it has to be something that when you tell it to somebody who doesn't know your school, they kind of go, whoa, well, that's interesting. That's
Hmm.
different. I can't get that down the street. I can't get that across the street. So it's really making sure that, and most schools don't know this, what is our mission and how do we live it every day? So where does it show up? Where is it present? And does that make us unique? It should. And if it's not, like if I can go onto another website, we develop the whole child. It's mind, body, and soul. If those are the words I'm using, I am not differentiating myself.
Hmm.
So I have to be able to find something unique. You can run your own history. You can do your own research, run it through Chat GPT or AI and say, what other schools in my area do what we say we do?
With the elementary school that's attached to my parish where I'm serving
Mhm.
in faculty faith formation, one of the things I did with them was have each teacher put together an elevator speech on the school.
Yep. Yep. That's the three things you want them to nail down and be able to say right off the tongue. Yep.
So, yeah, that was a great exercise. And as they shared, each one saw a little bit different picture of the school than the other ones had, which
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, and then the final one,
Mhm.
a goal without a plan is just a wish. I love that. That belongs on a bumper sticker.
I'm sure it is somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're navigating new waters with old maps. And so we have to have plans. I always say to people, if you want a different cake, you have to change the ingredients. You can't keep making the same cake, but you need to know where you're going. So um, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks cannot work anymore. If you're not analyzing data, if you don't have strategies and benchmarking, if you don't know what your budget impacts are going to be, if you don't have calendars, you need all of that in order to be successful. And it starts with knowing where you want to go and working backwards from there.
Are there times where the enrollment manager would get kind of uh, a message from on high? Okay, you need to recruit 20 new students for next year.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
How,
So,
however,
so where do you go with that? That's the thing.
yeah, well, you first have to make sure you have the infrastructure for that.
Yeah.
Do we, is the school struggling? It's not always all on the enrollment manager. If the key ingredients for success aren't there, there's not a lot of, that you can
Hmm.
do. I think you're also relying on your data. Is that a feasible, what we call a SMART goal? Is it, something we can measure? And is it actually doable? Can we actually do it? If you have a school of 64 students, increasing by 20 is a big goal. If you have
Yeah,
a school of
exactly.
300 students, that's not so bad. But what grades are we looking to fill, et cetera, et cetera?
And
So,
what is the demographic of the population at that
1000%.
point? Yeah.
Right.
It's really in, especially elementary K through 8.
Hmm.
It's amazing the swells
Yes.
and the ebbs and flows that you have in student population across the whole city, for example.
1000%. Yep.
So yeah, very, very important. So if I were a new enrollment manager and I'm given a goal, where would I start? Are there resources that are available that I can call upon to
Hmm.
help me to address the goal that I've been given?
Well, I do that with schools through Partners in Mission. We help schools build plans, make assessments, feasibility. So, short answer is yes, you can go online, you can talk to other enrollment managers, but I'm always open for a conversation too if anybody wants a Kickstarter.
Let's say that an enrollment manager calls you and is looking for some guidance. Where would you take them?
Hmm. Well, I think it depends on the size of the school, what their goals are. Some schools want to refine their enrollment management journey. Some schools want to increase enrollment. Some are full and at capacity and don't know how to handle a wait list. So it just depends on that. One of the first places I often direct schools is to their data. What is your data telling you?
Mhm.
Um, are you enrolling the right kind of student, the mission fit kind of student? Um, how's your retention? Is that something you need to work on? We're actually just about ready to put out an enrollment management playbook that's going to allow schools to just dip into the areas that are
Mhm.
most important to them at that moment in time. Everything from how do we do a better tour to how do we make sure a family is a lifelong donor, because we want them to believe in who we are. There's a lot along the way, and every school, there is no short answer, Father, is that there is no one step,
Mhm.
one fit. It should be unique to every school. And that's what we strive to do. I strive to do is to get to know the school, get to know the person, because personalities make a difference in how we approach this, and find out what is your most pressing challenge today. And then we work backwards from there and determine, for instance, I want to increase the number of inquiries that convert to applicants. So we get a lot of it. We might get 500 inquiries, but only 160 of them convert to applicant. What's happening here? So we have to set achievable goals, as we talked about.
Mhm.
We have to understand how we're going to measure our progress and our outcomes. We have to talk about what can we do differently. That's that cake analogy. What ingredients do we need to change up? We need to think about, is this going to impact our budget? Well, if it goes well, it's going to be a positive impact. Are there any negatives to what we might be trying to do? And then who needs to be part of that conversation?
Mhm.
Oftentimes, a school will contact me and say, I just need you to work with our enrollment manager. No, we need to work with more than the enrollment manager. We need to
Right.
talk to different constituents, different stakeholders, and really dig into what's happening here. Because I don't, we all have our own version of the truth, and somewhere in the middle lies what's really happening. And so, really important to dig in. But
Mhm.
if I were a brand new enrollment manager, I would probably want to get a handle on my numbers and to find out what's going to move that.
Mhm. What about feeder schools? Does the number of feeder schools really have a big bearing on enrollment?
It can absolutely dwindling number of we call them partner schools. Um, that means fewer fish in the pond, right? We're out there
Hmm.
fishing. We're competing with other Catholic high schools, and my theory is always, I don't care where you go as long as you go to a Catholic school. That's how I look at it. But that's hard to swallow when there's a school that's gobbling up everybody from a specific partner school, which I
Right.
had. We had a partner school right down the street at K through 8. They sent almost all of their girls to our competitor, which was a half an hour to 45 minutes away. We were right down the street. How did we compete with that? So, there's just, you have to really build relationships with those partner schools. I encourage articulation agreements. I encourage collaboration between teachers. I encourage events. I encourage alumni from those schools to go back and support those schools, be present on campus at events in their high school swag and gear. The bigger picture is the relationship. We've got to have good relationships with the pastors as well as the principals of those schools.
A lot of schools also have parishes with no schools that are nearby.
Correct?
What are great ways for enrollment managers to connect with those types of
Mhm.
parishes?
Time, you have to go and spend time with those pastors, with those priests. Say, hey, would you like a tour? Invite them, make them VIPs at events. The board could perhaps invite them to an event.
Hmm.
Um, Check-ins, find out what are your concerns about our school? What do you love about our school? I also think it's really important to be present. So find out who your parents and families are that are parishioners at that school or at that
Hmm.
parish, pardon me, and be present on the weekends. I had many a day where I spent with, in there asking to be up at the end of Mass for announcements and then being at a table with kids
Yep.
in their uniforms on a Sunday saying, hey, ask me about my school. And that presence puts in the mind of, hey, that might be the school for us, and they can come talk to you.
I think that's really a good thing to do, especially if you avoid displacement. Like you're going to this really nasty school and you need to be in our school instead because we're
Oh
better.
gosh.
Yeah.
Never dwell. I used to
Yeah.
tell my students all the time, what do we do if they say, how do you compare to X, Y, or Z school? My answer is patently always, I can't talk to you about their school. I'm going to let them do that. Let me tell you what our school does. Let
Right.
me tell you. And
Yeah.
and one of the biggest strategies that I think is great is to give families who visit you a comparison chart. Here are all the things we do really, really well. Go out and ask the other schools if they do that. It's not my job to sell
Yeah.
or deter. My job is to get them to believe in what we do.
I think that's so important. And that whole idea of devaluing the other in order to elevate yourself is a really
Never works.
scary. It never works. No, because you'll always disappoint them in some way, shape, or form.
Correct. And you know what?
Yeah.
There is a student for every school and a school for every student. And again, going back to my original premise, which is God's calling you in one way or another, and you have to listen. And parents need to make the best decision for their child, and that may not be your school, and that's heartbreaking because we put a lot of time, effort, and money into enrolling a student. But if we do it really, really well and we don't make promises we can't keep, I never wanted to be the used car salesperson, right?
Hmm.
If we're very honest, if we educate families from day one, this is who we are, they will never be disappointed. And the only time they're disappointed is when their expectations are not met. So let's set those early. And that way, fewer people are leaving and having a negative reaction. And we're enrolling for retention. And that's the goal. And so if I have 85 students that love and our families support our mission and our teachers versus 90 or five are poisoning the pool, it's not a good situation.
Hmm.
Let's go with the 85 and figure out how we work with that.
I almost think that you have a number six here as I picked it up because I think one of the most important things is that we enroll for retention.
Mhm.
We just don't want to get them in the front doors so that in a
No.
year they go, "Well, this isn't working."
And
You
they're the
know,
loudest ones, right? When they
yeah,
leave, they're the squeaky wheel. And it costs us 7 times more to fill a seat than it does to recruit for a seat. So when
yeah,
somebody leaves, that's a lot of effort, money. It's if you take the tuition lost over the longevity, it's a lot. So
yeah.
educating teachers about retention, super important how they can help. But if I'm not enrolling correctly and I'm setting up the school for failure, just putting, as we used to call it, behinds in seats, that's not going to forward the mission of our school. We are no longer a mission-driven school. We are a monetary focused school. In fact, Sister Claire Fitzgerald at a Partners in Mission conference said when I was an enrollment manager, she had somebody come in and assess their school, or maybe it was even their convent. I can't remember, their sisters. And the person came in and she said, "Would you like to see our mission statement?" And the person said to her, "No, I want to see your books because that will tell me your mission." So it's not the statement, that promise, it's your actions, it's your activities that will really tell people who you are.
That is a really good point. And then maybe to do a little bit of reverse
Sure.
engineering and go back and say, does does our activity reflect in what we say our mission is?
You know, that is a brilliant point, and I want to let you know I had of course, as an enrollment manager, you are saying yes or no to a lot of kids, which is a very difficult thing to do in a Catholic school. We want to take them all. But in some cases, I had a school where I was working that felt they were very high academically. And when I brought in a student application where she had pretty much C's, they looked at me and said, "She'll never make it here." And of course, the student moved around a lot. Her family was in the military. She was a great kid. But she had C's, she just wasn't, school wasn't her favorite thing. And I said, "Where in the mission statement does it say we only accept kids with straight A's or A's and B's?" And I just got that look of, oh gosh, it doesn't exactly. So if we cannot tie every action, every decision back to our mission, we're not doing the best for our school.
Hmm. And it's interesting how a student might get to this new environment and
She
thrive.
did. She did.
Yeah.
She ended up going to a very well-known university and she is doing great things. And family was a pillar, sent
Hmm.
all of their daughters to us. So we have to be just really remind ourselves of what our purpose is. And it's God first and foremost. It's our church. Anybody can educate. Anyone can have AP this or IB that. Anyone can have a softball team. What's the essence of what we do? The essence is to remind people that there's a bigger purpose and it's
Yeah.
to get souls to heaven. Yeah.
Well, that's it. And I know we used to say, and it wasn't original with us, I know, and that is our first job is to get your kid to heaven, but we want them to go to college first.
Right. We want
And
them to
so,
have an educated
yeah,
conversation about why they want to go to heaven. We want them to
exactly. But
understand and share the
yeah,
word. Yeah. Yeah.
but and it's so wonderful when you see the students, the young men and women, just respond and really take hold of their faith. It's just there's nothing better.
And we're seeing an explosion of that right now. We're
Hmm.
seeing youth that are rejecting some of the cultural norms that have just been percolating in the cesspool, if you will, over the last couple of decades. And these kids are hungry for purpose. They want to know what is the meaning. And in the past, we were told this is how it is. You just do it. You just suck it up and get through it. Nowadays, we're saying, no, there's more to life. And,
Hmm.
college isn't for every student
Right.
because, it's just not. And so these kids are seeking meaning and their families are seeking ways to help them get that meaning. And so that's where Catholic schools are uniquely positioned because we've been doing it for decades. Um, it's just who we are. It's inherent. It's in our DNA.
It's really exciting too when you hear about Catholic schools that are partnering with vocational schools so that
Yes.
they receive the substance of a Catholic education, but with a trade involved. And that has been revolutionary, I think, in recent years.
Well, you just look at the Cristo Rey network.
Yeah.
The Cristo Rey network has it down where these kids are light years ahead of their peers. And so schools that are doing let's do a reality check. My son did 2 years and he said, it's not for me, Mom. I don't want to do it. But, other people do. That's okay. Let's find out what God's calling is for you.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
explore that. And there's no safer place with more opportunity than to be in a Catholic school and have that experience.
Well, Christy, this has really been a lot of fun to kind
Thank
of
you.
pick your brain on those life lessons that have
Sure. I
been
have
there for
millions
you.
more, sir.
Oh, well, we'll have to come back again for a session
Anytime.
number two. Uh, One thing, just
Mhm.
as we close up, you've been in Catholic education for a number of years.
Mhm.
Just from your position, what would you say to our teachers and administrators that are in the trenches right now?
Mhm.
What would your message be to them today?
You are changing lives and you don't necessarily know it. It's a hard job. It's a thankless job on many occasions, but God is watching and He's guiding you, and you just need to keep your head up and keep going. It's the most worthy cause on earth is to shepherd these young men and women on their journey to heaven.
Oh, Christy, that's wonderful. Yeah, and I agree with you completely. Life change is what it's all about, and just seeing how young people again are responding to the Lord and just living as followers is so wonderful.
Yep.
Well, again, thanks for being on Follow to Lead. If people want to find out more about you or connect with you at Partners in Mission, how can they do that?
Well, they can go to the Partners in Mission website. It's partnersinmission.com. My email is just my first name dot my last name. So Cristy, no H, Cristy dot MCNAY at partnersinmission.com. And if they send me an email, my cell phone will also be attached on my reply. And I am always happy to have a conversation with a fellow Catholic school.
Oh, Christy, thanks. That is absolutely wonderful. And for information about the Duke and Altum Schools Collaborative, please visit our website at diaschools.org. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow our podcast, and be sure to leave a comment to encourage us toward future programs. May Almighty God bless you.